Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Now, good morning and welcome into Tipp today on Wednesday, the 18th of March. I hope everyone had a good St. Patrick's Day yesterday. Fran is due back tomorrow, but it's Donal sitting in again on Tipp today in the hot seat for you for one more day. Coming up on this morning's show, when Martin met Donald Mark II in the White House, we're going to talk to journalist Fionnan Sheahan to give us a rundown on the meeting in the Oval Office yesterday with the Shamrock presentation. Cllr Phyll Bugler will discuss a boat rally taking place this weekend on Loch Derg. Bernie Goldbach will be live in studio. Dermot Goode is going to be here to answer all your health insurance queries. Our Agony Aunt Phil Prendergast will be here. We'll have all this for you and much more over the next 3 hours or so. But first, this morning, Hotel Manila has given us 2 tickets to give away every day this week for the Tina Turner Tribute Act in the Hotel Manila on Sunday, the 5th of April. So to be in with your chance to win, you can text or WhatsApp Manila followed by your name, your phone number and email address to 083 311 3311. Now, we normally go to a review of the newspapers, which we will try to get to a little later. But look, I can tell you that every paper today is dominated on the front page with a large picture of, well, I won't say smiling, but Donald Trump, the US President, and our Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, in the Oval Office. And we're going to go straight to talk about that with Fionnan Sheahan from the Irish Independent. Fionnan, good morning, and thanks for joining us this morning. How are you? Did you have a good St. Patrick's Day?
It was an entertaining evening. I was listening in after the Paddy's Day parades, and I don't think anything in the Patrick's Day parades were as wild as or rambunctious as Donald Trump ranting on for about 45 minutes, and poor old Micheál Martin having to sit there. I bet he wished he was sitting on the back of a lorry back in Ireland in a trailer watching a Paddy's Day parade.
In the wind and the rain, yeah.
For life for him.
Yeah, but sometimes you just have to let somebody get their rant out of the way before you can get going yourself. I know you weren't over there, Fionnan. You were watching it here yesterday evening. Mary Regan was over there for you. I liked her piece in the Endo this morning. Yeah, she gave a good flavour of the tension in the room.
Yeah, like her point was, even though it's been dominated by Donald Trump, you just don't know like what's going to come out next. In a way, kind of suited the Taoiseach a wee bit in that Donald Trump was doing all the talking. The vast majority of the questions were to him about pretty much about US foreign policy and this ongoing war with Iran, and his failure to both, strategize on it and also get allies on board. So, I mean, Donald Trump had a long list of people who he was giving out about. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, French President Emmanuel Macron, the rest of Europe, NATO, allies, environmentalists, windmills, and so on. And it just seemed to go on and on and on. And Micheál Martin had to, at times, intervene. There was nothing really awkward that he was facing apart from the cringe factor. And he stepped in on a couple of occasions to just talk about, immigration and say, look, Europe, Trump was making out that Europe has been overrun by migrants and that it's now a very dangerous place. And Micheál had to correct him on that.
Yeah, look, largely, Fionnan, it's being seen as a win, isn't it? I know the opposition politicians, the first one I saw out of the blocks was Holly Cairns, the Soc Dems leader yesterday, but others have chimed in about a missed opportunity. But the overriding feeling I'm getting from everyone was this is a win for Micheál Martin.
Yeah, I think a bit of a sense of relief. It's all very well been hurled around the ditch, given out. I mean, I noticed Sinn Féin were complaining, and at the same time they were boycotting events in Washington. So you're kind of going, well, you're not exactly going over there raising these points. So why do you, how come you think that the Taoiseach deserves to be criticised for doing that? So yeah, look, no matter what he said, he was never going to satisfy everyone. He spoke about the importance of peace. He spoke about the peace, but he spoke up for particularly, and this was a criticism of him last year, that he didn't speak up. So on this occasion, he did speak up for the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
And I think, Fionnan, I found it interesting as well. Maybe the Taoiseach as a Cork man, it was the idea that Winston Churchill was great, but Keir Starmer wasn't. And Micheál Martin chiming in to say, well, in Ireland we wouldn't have fond views on Winston Churchill at all, and yet Keir Starmer is a good buddy that I'm going to have to talk to soon, kind of thing was the overriding kind of feeling I got off it.
Yeah, but he only met Starmer last week in Cork at that British-Irish summit, so there was a fresh relationship there. I'm sure they spoke about the trip to Washington during that meeting privately. He stepped in. He didn't quite explain to give a history lesson to Mr. Trump about
the War of Independence,
and the Black and Tans, and the War of Independence.
Might have been too much for him to handle.
Yeah, I don't think the sheer fact that there was a bust of Churchill sitting there when the Irish Taoiseach is visiting kind of showed a lack of understanding of the history there anyway. So Micheál decided, probably rightly, not to go there, but he got his point across there. He stood up for Ukraine as well, which was important, because Trump was complaining about the support that the United States have provided to Ukraine throughout the 4 years of conflict with Russia, particularly now at a time when US foreign policy is distracted in other ways, gone towards the Middle East, and we're seeing sanctions being reduced on Russia. So that was probably the most important point that Micheál Martin made, was to stand up for Ukraine and to not forget them. He also stood up for rules-based immigration, and saying that Europe is not as bad as Trump made out to be. He spoke about the importance of peace. He spoke about peacekeeping, our history in that regard.
Sorry to interrupt, Fionnan, but I think he did that well as well, when he didn't actually contradict Donald Trump and say it's not as bad as you say, it's not as bad as some people make it out to be, which gives Trump a little leeway that he's not being criticised.
Yeah, it's a pattern that it's a trick that I suppose Micheál Martin has developed. He makes points counter to what Donald Trump is making, but not in kind of an insulting way. He did the same a year ago when tariffs was the item on the agenda, and at that point the narrative from Micheál Martin was, "Listen, trade is a two-way thing. We create jobs in America just like American companies create jobs in Ireland," and Trump was pretty much sitting there agreeing with him. And sure enough, this time around, Trump's narrative on tariffs was that trade between Ireland and America is very strong, and it's $1 trillion industry between jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. So he appears to have got that point across. So it was an awkward one. Yeah, you can turn around and criticise Micheál Martin and say he didn't thump the table. He didn't say you're in breach of international law here, your incursion is illegal, your behaviour between Venezuela and the Middle East shows scant regard for international law. What about Gaza? But I think most people would agree, when you examine Donald Trump's behaviour over the course of that 40 minutes of engagement, you're not dealing with a kind of a rational person here. So you have to make your points in a sane and sensible manner to stand apart from his behaviour.
And I suppose it helps that Trump doesn't know who Catherine Connolly, our president, is, and hadn't heard her interventions in terms of breaches of international law.
No, and this danger, I suppose, was flagged in advance, that it's hard enough for a fellow like Donald Trump to understand that the Taoiseach is our Prime Minister and he's the leader of the country, to be trying to explain to him that there's another head of state who doesn't have any major powers, doesn't have any say in international policy. Yeah, that's probably not going to go into his head. So, yeah, Micheál Martin stood back on that one when Donald Trump basically dismissed Catherine Connolly in a quite you'd say kind of ignorant, but at the same time it kind of did sum up the impact of her comments in that he misgendered her. He said, he referred to her as he. And that he was fortunate that Trump was around to counter the Iranians, because he claimed that the Iranians were close to developing a nuclear weapon, and that they were going to set off such a nuclear weapon within a month if the US hadn't intervened. So he had no idea about the President of Ireland. He had no idea about Catherine Connolly. He had no idea about
who she is or what she says. It doesn't register on his radar.
Doesn't care. No.
Yeah, which might be a little insulting for the President, but from Micheál Martin's point of view, I'm sure he was holding himself back from wiping his brow in relief at that stage.
Yeah, he also didn't know about the snails of Doonbeg, I suppose. Mr. Trump was asked about the objections to his golf resort, developing a ballroom for weddings and functions and so on, and he didn't know much about that, but he was full of praise. No, he
does like building ballrooms, as we know, but he is supposed to have stepped back from the business, so and the ins and outs of planning applications in Ireland probably not big on his radar, which is pretty much what he said.
I don't think you have to abide by rules like that as well, although he did run into trouble recently with Mar-a-Lago, I think, on a similar regard. But he, on that point, the thing was, he was, you'd have to say, generally positive towards Ireland. He didn't have a negative remark to make about Ireland, about the Taoiseach at any point, and he was even expressing the view that he hopes he will be able to attend the Irish Open in Doonbeg in September. So broadly speaking, Micheál Martin did have that advantage that he is stepping into the Oval Office. There isn't any direct ask that he's making of Donald Trump. He's not really offering anything either, because we're a small neutral country with a limited enough military, so we're not of much use to Trump in terms of his current crusade in the Middle East. So broadly speaking, he was positive towards Micheál Martin, and Micheál Martin chose not to pick a fight as a result of that, and that was probably quite wise.
And did Micheál actually, I know it was a reporter question whether Trump would visit for the Irish Open in Doonbeg, but did Micheál make any comment on that? Did he proffer an invitation?
He basically said there was an open invitation. He has been saying there's an open invitation to Donald Trump to come to Ireland whenever he so wishes. He stopped off here in Shannon on his way back from Europe recently. He had a brief stop. I don't even think he got off the plane. And then moved on. He met with the US ambassador while he was there. So there are two events coming up, I suppose, within the next 12-18 months that will potentially see him come into the Midwest. The first being the Irish Open at Doonbeg, and he was full of praise for it and described the Irish Open as one of the biggest golf events in the world. Now, that's a bit of a stretch, but
yes.
It is a wonderful golf club, and
But if he's coming, Fionnan, that will make it one of the biggest events in the world, won't it?
Yeah, it will. I mean, that will raise the profile of it beyond any stature it has at the moment. His family members will obviously be there. His son currently oversees all of the golf resorts, and so is a regular visitor to Doonbeg, and they are, to be fair, they have been seen to be good proprietors of that resort after they took it over when the previous owners who developed it put it up for sale, and as a result of it was put up for sale as a result of the financial crash. So they have been seen to come in and curate, and I suppose having a major PGA golf tournament on there will be a pinnacle of that achievement in terms of showcasing the development there. So there's a possibility strongly that he will seek to pop into that over the course of the 4 days of golf. There's other events on his calendar around that time that may not allow him to spend too much time there. So he could pop in there. There's also the Ryder Cup in Adair the following year, which again he may show an interest in attending. So the likelihood is that we are going to have Donald Trump coming here over the course of the next 12 or 18 months. He did make the point as well, although we don't adopt him because he's of Scottish lineage, that there are 25 odd American presidents who we can track back to Ireland. The most recent, I mean, he even praised John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, because his nephew is currently his health secretary, and he likes the Kennedys as a result of that. He did repeatedly have a go at Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Again, Taoiseach decided not to step in there. There's only so many times you can step in and defend someone. So he
Barack Hussein Obama again.
Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah, there was a bizarre conspiracy theory about a plane load of cash being sent over to the Iranians under Obama. He was accusing Biden of giving weapons to the Ukrainians for nothing. So, you know, he was volleying away on them. And, you know, in those cases, I suppose, Taoiseach kind of focused on present day people rather than people from the past in terms of who he could actually defend over the course of this conversation.
Yeah, so I guess from J.D. Vance's shamrock socks in the morning and his support, overall this went no bombs, no grenades thrown. It's probably as good as we could have expected. Yeah,
I mean, look, it's as good as you can expect, but you have to remember it is very erratic. It's very volatile. It can be a hostile environment. You know, as you've been saying, the tension is kind of high about what direction it's going to go in. But, you know, Micheál Martin had to steer his way through that. You got to put up with the wildness of it all and the slapstick nature as well of some of it. I mean, some of the claims that he makes are just so out of this world that you just have to sit there and not look to correct it. But, you know, Taoiseach stepped in when he needed to step in. So, yeah, you can say, well, he could have said more about this and he could have said more about that, but you also have to give him credit for the things that he did actually say. And, you know, in front of a bust of Churchill on the 100th anniversary of Fianna Fáil, the Taoiseach was in the Oval Office defending the British Prime Minister. I don't think we saw that one coming up.
And as someone said, we had Gerry Adams saying, "Come on, England," before the rugby on Saturday.
Yeah,
strange days.
I don't think De Valera would have foreseen these events all those years back. But look, it continues it on for another year. There was no diplomatic incident. Everybody seemed happy. They were back for the Shamrock ceremony then last night. Taoiseach did make his points about standing up for international law there, so he can say, look, I brought up the point one way or another in the most fitting way possible. But ultimately, you know, nobody wants to get on the wrong side of Donald Trump because you just don't know what sort of revenge he's going to enact upon you. Taoiseach has got broader considerations to keep in mind economically, socially, politically, in terms of the issues that he can bring up and that he will bring up. And broadly speaking, he has to strike that balance.
Yeah, and we don't, there's no implications or ramifications in terms of policy for Ireland or anything that changes as a result of this. I suppose the only thing is that, you know, the opposition called that Ireland's vaunted soft power, there wasn't much evidence of it being used.
Yeah, but the soft power is the fact that we're there in the first place. You know, other countries are not afforded this privilege, if you call it that. You know, Washington and the White House and Capitol Hill don't shut down for a few hours to honour other countries as they do with Ireland. So I mean, that's the soft power. That's the influence. It's keeping the door open and making sure the next time you call that the phone is picked up. So you know that's the soft power is that's the way we have chosen to exercise it over the years. Back when, I mean, the Taoiseach referred yesterday to Ronald Reagan visiting Ireland back in the 1980s to Ballyporeen in County Tipperary. There's a top man praising County Tipperary inside the Oval Office. So that's great. But I mean, the point there is if you go back, you remember that trip well. There were protests as a result of the Reagan visit in Ireland. So over the years, you do have protests in relation to US foreign policy from Ireland, and that's fine, that's respected. But the Taoiseach of the country has to take the bigger picture into consideration.
Very good. Look, so disaster averted, Fionnan. Thanks for filling us in and keeping us up to date, and we'll chat to you again soon. Thanks very much. Now, we better take a quick break, folks, and we'll be back talking about a diver expo coming up in Nina and another expert on geopolitics and the like. Back with more after this.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back, folks. Donal here in for Fran for one more day. Now we're going to be talking about there's a Diving Ireland Expo returning to the Abbey Court Hotel in Nina next weekend. It's Ireland's biggest diving and water sports show and is being hosted by the Lough Derg Sub Aqua Club. They're going to have a load of guest speakers and interesting things that we'll hear about a little later on. But first, I'm joined by Chris Reynolds, who has had a very interesting career and is one of the main guest speakers at the event next weekend in the Abbey Court. Chris started out in the Irish Navy. He was a bomb disposal officer and headed up the Naval Diving Unit. He went on to lead the Irish Coast Guard and led missions for the UN and the EU, including combating piracy in the Red Sea, I believe, and he served in Lebanon. Chris, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Donald.
Very interesting career you've had, and it kind of positions you in a very unique place to talk to us about some of the stuff we're talking about in general in the news at the moment. First of all, just on the Diving Expo, that's going to be a big event next weekend.
Yes, it's a big annual event. I've been asked to speak basically on Coast Guard advice to divers, but I'll be very much talking to a convinced audience, and that divers are pretty much safety conscious.
Yeah, and look, that's something you know a lot about, and you're obviously a respected contributor on that. Chris, I think you're working in Maynooth University as well on international relations and that sort of thing. Chris, I just know from your naval background, and you have served in the Red Sea in the Pacific, or not in the Pacific, but the Indian Ocean, I believe. You would have a unique insight into the Strait of Hormuz, would you?
I would have. Obviously, I've been up with the American Fifth Fleet in Bahrain and worked around Djibouti and Yemen as well.
So can you describe, I know a lot of people will have heard a lot about it, but in terms of the geography and the importance, mightn't know a lot of the background. Can you give us a brief, I suppose, a geographical take on it and explain just why it is so important?
Okay, it's quite a tight waterway. So up at the top of the waterway, you have Kuwait, and that's in the Gulf of Arabia. And you have Iran on one side, and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, and UAE on the other side. And that leads out into the Gulf of Oman. Obviously, Oman's on one side and Iran's on the other side. But you squeeze through a tight gap, which is a bend, straight to Hormuz. And that's the problem, and that's basically the killing zone. It's so easy if you want to close that down, to close it down. There's so many ways you can do that.
Yeah, in naval terms, it becomes a bit of a turkey shoot with land on either side in contention, I suppose. And how easy is it then to target shipping through that crucial area?
It's very easy because shipping is quite slow. Your average ship travels about 18 knots. That's only about 25 miles an hour. So it's not a difficult target to hit. They're big. They stand out against the skyline. So they're very hard to protect.
And how, when Donald Trump is asking all of his friends who he loves attacking as well, but asking his, we'll say in inverted commas, allies to join in the defence of shipping there, like I've heard elsewhere that it's too narrow actually to put convoys through in a traditional military sense. How would you go about protecting shipping, I suppose?
Okay, so convoys are out because convoys normally you'd have two screens on a convoy, an outer screen and inner screen. The inner screen would be anti-air, and the outer screen would be anti-submarine. You won't be able to get that sea room inside there. So what we've done in the past, say for example around the Bab el-Mandeb, around the Red Sea, we've created corridors and told ships they must pass down these corridors, tell us when you're going in, and we'll keep you safe and tell us when you come out the other end. That was for piracy back in the day. It was done again in the Black Sea during the Ukraine crisis, and it was called the Grain Corridor. So you make a corridor, and then you protect that corridor with warships.
And I suppose this is slightly different from piracy, though, that I suppose the threat really is drones and missiles being fired from we don't know where, mostly in Iran.
Yes, I mean, you can use a dhow, a slow-moving dhow, packet of explosives and bring it alongside a big merchant vessel or a tanker. It's so easy to do that it's nearly unstoppable.
Okay, so that's nearly unstoppable is a massive dent in Trump's assertions that he can protect shipping there, is it?
Yes, I mean it's anybody who knows about naval warfare would say just the squeeze there. What you have to do is you have to control the land side. So you have to put boots on the ground and have to take over the bit of Iran that is around the Strait of Hormuz. That is the only way to stop that.
The only way. There's no other option in your view, because I've heard similar that the convoys would be too wide. They can't get through the narrow shipping channel, and you're even then, I suppose, as you're saying, it's really hard to protect in a small space.
Correct. It will be very hard to protect in that small space. Diplomacy, obviously, will be the only way out of this for President Trump. And I don't think that point has arrived yet.
Yeah, well, he says he's had offers. What do you make? You've been with the Defence Forces. You were with the Defence Forces for years. You've experience of UN and EU missions. What do you make of, I suppose, the argument that Iran, which was disputed, that they're nearly ready to make a deal, but it doesn't look like that from outside. And we all know that every war has to end eventually in diplomacy. We're a long way away from that, are we?
I think we are. The reason he went to war about the enrichment, the 60% enrichment of uranium, that's a valid. That was a valid problem. That is a real problem for the world, for a state like Iran to develop a 90% enrichment. So the problem was there. The solution is probably not the solution that was a wise solution.
Yeah, you have contacts in security and defence circles, I'm sure, Chris, still. What about the International Atomic Agency's contention that there was no imminent danger, that they, whatever programme they might have been thinking about in the background, that they couldn't find any evidence of it before Trump pulled out of that nuclear deal with Iran? Is that credible, or is it widely thought that, yes, look, they're doing this somewhere?
Yeah, I think I know one of the inspectors who was in there, and what they'll tell you is that why would you bother enriching to 60% unless you have a reason to do that? They don't need to do that for their reactors. So obviously it is a problem. Even now with 6% uranium, it would be very easy to make a dirty bomb. So if Iran wanted, it could take that enriched uranium and land it in a missile over, say, Dubai, and that would be a huge issue. So there is a problem there. For sure there's a problem there. And I think the IEA didn't get access to all the sites. They'll admit that. And they haven't been in that country for many years since Trump pulled out of the deal. So I think we'd have to take that with a small pinch of salt.
Yeah, the head of Trump's counter-terrorism pulled out in the last couple of days, resigning and saying that he didn't believe that there was a credible threat. Is that, I believe he had anti-Semitic connections and far-right connections, and what he might have been resisting is the, I suppose, the working with Israel, maybe. But what's your view on that? Somebody in the administration saying that it wasn't a credible threat?
I think what he means is it wasn't an imminent threat. I think it's credible if you got a country like Iran enriching to 60%. That's a credible threat, but it mightn't be an imminent threat.
Yeah, so you're making the difference. How far? Yeah, look, I suppose. Look, nuclear is takes a lot of development.
They can reach from 60 to 90 in a couple of months.
Really, is it that quick?
Yeah,
I thought it was all a very slow
quick,
process.
Yeah. No, they can if they have the right kit, they can do it within 3 months.
Yeah, and look, and we know that Israel is like as a state afraid that Iran wants to wipe it off the map, and if they got that far, Iran or Israel would be the first target. That's why they've been so gung ho for this.
Yes.
Look, obviously they're very pleased with how this is going. What do you make of how Netanyahu and the Israelis are, I suppose, dealing with it? Obviously, they've been looking to do this or for an opportunity to do this for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I've my own opinions about Netanyahu. I was involved in an incident that he was behind, and that man has no mercy. There's no soft core to that man. So. If he's behind it, they will go and they will finish the job.
And what was the incident that you were involved in, Chris?
It was the Quantum Massacre.
Ah, okay. Do you want to tell maybe just a brief history for our listeners?
Oh, it was basically Israeli shelled a Fiji base and they killed about 140 Lebanese. They said that it was an accident, but the reality is it was probably that they wanted to get rid of the Prime Minister and get Netanyahu in. So when they did that, the Americans made the Israelis sue for peace. The PM looked like a dove. They wanted a hawk. So that was the first time Netanyahu became Prime Minister.
Yeah, and look, we've seen his qualities of mercy and how he's conducted the war in Gaza over recent years. Yeah. There is clear evidence that he is more of a hawk and that he is determined to carry out. I suppose, look, it's no surprise. This has been his not modus operandi, but long-term plan and vision would have been along these lines anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. This is his dream come true.
Yeah, okay. Look, Chris, I know you have another appointment and I'd love to talk to you further, but thanks for that insight into the Strait of Hormuz and I suppose the difficulties with protecting the oil flow. We'll talk again about how that is going to continue and how it's going to affect us. But thanks for joining us this morning, Chris.
Thanks, Donald.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm also going to be joined on the line in relation to that diving expo by Simon O'Duffy, local journalist with the Nina Guardian and avid diver, as I know. Simon, are you there with us this morning?
Morning, Donald. Yeah.
Morning. How are you? Yeah, no problem. Tell us a bit. Look, you've obviously got a really interesting speaker there with Chris. You've probably spoken to him before, so you knew how interesting he was going to be.
Indeed, yeah. Chris is one of a lineup of maybe 20 or more speakers we have over the weekend. There's some really recognisable names in there, the likes of Nuala Moore, extreme ice swimmer. She's holds Guinness World Records for the feat she has done swimming 1,000 metres at 0 degrees. Incredible achievement. Also the likes of Dr. Simon Barrow. Many people will know him from the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group and the Irish Basking Shark Group. You've got Barry McGill in there. He's a deep sea diver, dives to 100 metres, 150 metres. He'd be regarded as a luminary in the world of technical diving, and he's a shipwreck explorer. So some very interesting talks come up over the weekend that should be of interest to a widespread audience, I think.
Yeah, it does sound interesting, Simon, although I'm pretty sure I've probably beaten Nuala Moore's record for cold water swimming off the coast of South Kerry in the past. But anyway, we'll leave that to another time. Tell us, give us a few of the details then. It's on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, starting at 9 o'clock, both days. It's on the Abbey Court Hotel. There will be a series of speakers, as I've mentioned. There will be an underwater photography exhibition with some new photographs of that. These are images captured by divers all around the country. And
yeah, they're always fascinating. Do you do a bit of photography yourself with your diving, Simon?
I don't know. I haven't got into it yet. I'm not diving as long as others have been that tend to get into it at a later stage. But I've seen some of the new photographs and I can tell you there's some good ones in there. Last year's exhibition has been on display locally already. It was in the library here in Lena. It was in the hospital. It was in the civic offices as well. And they attracted quite a bit of favourable attention. So we've a new exhibition coming to the Abbey Court this weekend as part of the show.
Very good. I've seen some of the pictures in the civic offices, all right. You mentioned there'll be features on dolphins, whales and basking sharks as well. Obviously, really important in Irish waters.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And there's a big kind of emphasis on conservation as well. The waters that we share with these creatures, we try to raise awareness of that. That'll be a key theme in talks as well, I think. But it's just one aspect of the series of things going on over the weekend. There's also a raffle with some big prizes to be won, and I should mention too that everybody who goes to the show will be entered into a prize draw for a holiday in the Red Sea. So extra bit of impetus for people to go then.
Yeah, that certainly gives a bit of incentive. If people do want to go, Simon, what do they need to know? Where do they need to go to get the information and all of that kind of thing?
We have a website, www.divingirelandexpo.ie. Tickets can also be bought at the venue on the day. It's €15 for a day ticket or $25 for the weekend.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Simon. Good luck with it. I won't be able to make it myself. I'll probably be working, but good luck with it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Donald.
Thanks very much. Simon O'Duffy there of the Nina Guardian, and obviously an avid diver and involved in organising that Diving Ireland Expo in the Abbey Court on Saturday and Sunday. We're going to go for a quick ad break.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
Now, welcome back to Tipp Today with Donal in for Fran, and I'm joined now by Ballina Councillor Phyll Bugler, who's going to tell us a bit about a boat rally that's taking place in Ballina this Saturday. It's in support of Lough Derg, but it's part of the No to the Pipe campaign. Good morning, Phil. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Donal. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I hope you enjoyed St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, it was very, very lively. I was in Nina first for the lovely parades there, and lovely parade. Then I was back in Ballina, Killaloe. I suppose I was on the Ballina Tidy Towns parade, so it was a great Newport parade on Saturday. So yes, overall brilliant, and it's so important for the economy of our towns, and it's also so important for the social fabric. You know, it brings us all together on a great day. Yeah,
it does. And you got good crowds, did you?
Massive crowds in Nina and in Newport, and Ballina was jam-packed. And in Ballina, I suppose we were very lucky that Tipperary County Council supported us in organising traditional music in all our pubs in Ballina and Killaloe for the Monday evening. So we had sessions in all the pubs, and we were as good as Doolin. And it was just brilliant, the trad music. And it kind of was a lead into St. Patrick's Day, and with all the young dancers, the set dancers from the Scorna Pashti, and they were set dancing in the pubs. And it was just a brilliant Monday evening. We had, in places that normally wouldn't have traditional music, we organised traditional musicians for them. And yes, the place was really hopping. It was very good for the trade, very good for us.
Very good. Yeah, look, it's great that the crowds came out. Most of the rain stayed off for most of the weekend, so it helped. Always helps. Listen, tell me a bit, Phil, about this rally. Obviously, look, it's part of the No to the Pipe campaign, which at this stage, I think, going on our last conversation, Phil, we're reasonably happy about how that is going. That you are, and the likes of Shamie Morris and others that we've spoken to on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, we had a very good meeting, the council meeting, on the Monday, and I suppose I explained the facts to them, without dramatising, that this is a very, very serious for us. I talked about the 8 EU directives. I talked about the low flow rates, the studies done by, Icarus Institute in Maynooth that we will get drier periods in the Midwest, and possibly because the jet stream has moved at Dublin, and the East Coast will get wetter, as we've seen in the month of February, I think Dublin and Wexford were much wetter than normal. So it's all climate change. But just going on the figures of the low flows, just explain to the listeners, like in summer 2018, with low flow conditions in Lough Derg for 74 days. And during that time, the ESB had to report that the flows into Partine Basin were drastically reduced. So it won't even be the 10 going through there, 10 cubic metres per second. Also, summer 20 and August 21 with 47 separate dry periods. And again in 23. And when you have a dry period, that means that you have less volume of water. The water level in the lake can drop up to 2 feet. It means there's more concentration of blue-green algae is going to form, and that blue-green algae, then that cyanobacteria, that's going to form because of photosynthesis and because of less volume of water in the lake. So that, and that's the water that's going to Dublin. It's going to be quite toxic because they're going to have to add in an awful lot of chlorine into the water to eliminate the bacteria. And in doing that, the chlorine will react with any organic matter. By that I mean a little bit of soil, a little bit of leaves, and they're going to form these very dangerous trihalomethanes, which are very, very cancer-causing. That's a free radical process. So people in Dublin need to be aware that the water, which will be in the pipe for a minimum of 1.71 days, but as I've explained, in the summer, even last summer, it would be in the pipe for 17 days, because last summer, August 25, we had a hose ban in our area for 17 days. And then in 2018, we had probably a total dry period for 74 days. So
and Irish Water have given no indication, Phil, that they're going to take less water at these times, because obviously if there's dry spells in Ireland, that's the time that they need more water up in Dublin. So
Correct. And the problem is, there's other problems as well, maybe that I didn't mention at the meeting on Monday, is, so read the dry periods, and the studies from Nuth have shown that the Midwest are going to get drier, and then with the jets, et cetera. So it really is important that people understand, maybe in, December and January and February, you can take water from Lough Derg, but certainly as you're heading in towards April, May, June, July, August, September, we don't have the water to give them. There's less than the 10 cubic meters per second going down Partine Weir, and the ESB have stated that during the low flow periods they're not able to send down the amount that they're supposed to send down, which is the minimum of 10 cubic meters per second down Partine Weir. And but that's a question we have to ask, a parliamentary question we have to ask ESB for the actual flow rates, because there seems to be some anomaly from 2014 onwards. So we're checking those figures with them. But as you can see, in 2018, 74 days, of a total dry drought period. So it's very dangerous for us.
And you had your submission in. Councillor Shamie Morris's group had a submission in. The Labour Party had a submission in, and the council itself, in their submission, highlighted most of the same environmental and water flow concerns that you have mentioned here. And I think in my interview with Sinead Carr afterwards, she mentioned the word imbalance. Now, she refrained from being critical of the government or Irish Water or anything, but the point was that there's a massive imbalance in that all the risk of ecological harm is here in Tipperary and no local benefit. All the benefit is going to Dublin and parts of the Midlands with no risk.
Absolutely. The ecological risk is so high, it's so dangerous. If we end up with a lot of algae blooms similar to Lough Neagh, and you've read recently in the papers about the gene that has been found now in Lough Neagh that is resistant to antibiotics. So we've really people of Dublin need to be aware that the water they'll get from this pipe will be toxic. They need to be very careful. It's in the pipe too long, and the
THMs are a real risk. Yeah.
And we even in Nina, we're on the remedial action list with water coming from the Shannon already for the Nina area. Yeah. So really. So, but just on the boats itself.
Yes, tell me about Saturday. What's the idea and what's going to happen?
Well, it's just good. The boats will probably have 50 to 60 fishing boats from the Lough Derg anglers. we'll have the Cllr Sailing Club will have 2 power boats, and they will be with the safety instructors on board them. Hopefully we'll have some kayakers. It'll depend on the flow rate on the day. We've got to be careful that if of course you have 3 turbines going, that we'll have to probably stay up near the slipway rather than going down to the abstraction point. But I think we're promised good weather, so that should help a lot. And the problem is, I suppose, that Dublin has alternatives. I talked about Paula Fuca. I think it's 166 billion litres of water, which was originally built for Dublin, is only producing 0.2% electricity. That's really not sustainable. They also have Poolbeg, which is a waste plant burning waste, but they're producing energy, which is very, very easy for them to adapt and increase their output to do the desalination or the distillation, which will produce pure water. Also, there are 10 rivers running between Balbriggan and Arklow. I'll just mention a few of them: the Dargle in Bray, the Bantry in Wicklow Harbour, and there's a major reservoir at Roundwood. You have the Avonmore and the Avonbeg, which form the River Avoca, and they're all flowing into the sea at Arklow, and they're comparable to the Liffey with 20 cubic metres per second.
So they do have other options. Look, I'm coming up against an ad break here, Councillor. Just give me the details on the start time and whether you'd like people to come out and watch this flotilla and get involved.
Absolutely. So it's 1:30 at the Riverside Park, Ballina, at the Slipway. Would really like your support on this day, just to get the message out there, that we love our Lough Derg. We want to protect our Lough Derg from ecological damage, and we really, really appreciate the support on the day.
Councillor, thank you very much, and I hope the rally goes well for you on the lake. We'll be back after these ads.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Now, Tipp Today brought to you this morning by Donald Doyle, in for Fran for one more day. And I'm joined live in studio here now by Bernie Goldbach, who regular listeners will know. Bernie is a former Pentagon war planner and US Air Force air refueling pilot instructor. Bernie, thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you had a good St. Patrick's Day and weren't all consumed with geopolitics and Micheál Martin's visit to the Oval Office for the day.
Viewed it through a pint of Guinness, so I feel like I've totally made the transition to the real St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Good. Well, I'm glad you got into the spirit of things. Bernie, I suppose we were all watching closely to see what would happen when Micheál Martin was in the Oval Office. There weren't any great surprises with Trump lashing out at his purported friends and allies as usual. He has a strange idea of how to influence people, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's a study in itself. I'm sure there'll be plenty of books. There are plenty of books being written about it and how you parse the world of reality through the mind of Donald Trump. So I'll let it at that. I don't want to insult anybody, but there is a perspective of what you see and what we see and what is happening and gaslighting. So really good expert classes there being provided by not just Donald Trump, but his sycophants who are helping us parse the world of reality through their eyes.
Yeah. Well, look, there is clearly different perceptions of what's going on, whether they're sincerely believed by people in Trump's circle or whether they're more practical to implement. I'm still not sure.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, part of it's political. I mean, you've heard plenty of politicians, doesn't matter what country they're in, but once they get their gang behind them and they're waving the flag of what got them elected or what tribe they're from, it's hard to lose that. And it becomes part of their persona. So you create a mental health crisis if you force them to see that what they're looking at is your perception, not theirs. I think that's part of it. People like the comfort of knowing I'm getting what I voted for, or I'm getting what I always believed in, and it's reinforced by a news system that we don't have here. I took the family back to America, and Fox was everywhere, and CNN wasn't even in the rota for the televisions that were in the TV selection in the hotels. So that's so different. Public media over there is it's gutted, and it's not trusted, and yet Fox is, and Newsmax is.
And Fox certainly was the most clearly biased for the longer period of time. Now, you may claim, and people do, that CNN has gone the other way in opposition to it, trying to find a balance. But Fox certainly was not renowned for its objectivity going back even decades.
Right, and you see the big difference is that you have a requirement. If I go too hard against Trump, you should offer a little bit of a balance. If a politician comes in and rails against the government, you have to offer a little bit of a balance set under the rules through which the license is awarded in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely.
That balance isn't there in the commercialized broadcast spectrum of America.
Yeah, and Trump can attack any media outlet and call them all sorts of names in the White House just for asking an uncomfortable question. It's shocking what's going on over there. And I believe that there's photographers now being banned from press briefings because Pete Hegseth didn't like the pictures they were using of him. That he wasn't looking nice enough in them.
Yeah, well, they're asking also not to have cameras pointed down towards shoes and socks because there's problems with, Trump bought a whole bunch of shoes, Florsheim's out there for his staff, and they didn't get the sizes right. So these men are walking around with shoes that don't fit. And then the word cankles has appeared in my vocabulary because you can see Trump's maybe Venus problem with the circulation.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on his ankles, his hands. There was lesions on his neck and stuff. Yeah. Look, we know he's an old man, but his health has always been an issue because he made it such an issue with Joe Biden. So, look, I suppose it's nearly an aside at this point. He is in power, and we have to deal with the fallout from his actions here. Just to pick up, you were listening to Chris Reynolds there in the last hour. Like with your military background and expertise, Bernie, was there anything he said that you would disagree with greatly?
Well, I wouldn't, but I mean, I've actually operated both as a planner and as an aircraft pilot, instructor pilot in places. So, for example, one of the thoughts that runs through a lot of conversation is, what's the end point of the war? And some people would say, well, the end point of the war should be to make sure Iran can't be a rogue nation with nuclear power. So then I think, right, if he's truly going to try to get weapons that, as Chris said, are at least 60% enriched. Yeah, you're talking about an excavation team, 5 to 10,000 in size. You need 5. I have a scar on my face here from Anahuac, where America detonated 18 weapons, hydrogen bombs, and in the 1970s they cleared the atoll, Anahuac, and got rid of all the dirt, mixed it into a concrete slurry and buried it in a big thing called the Runet Dome. And I would fly in and out of there, providing provisions and rotating the staff there. The staff was about 3,000 to 5,000, always on the island. No dosimeters. Guys running around, bareback with cut off shorts and running at high speed with their JCBs. I reckon more than half of them died of all kinds of interesting cancer cases. Okay, now the thing is, if America goes in with the Israelis and tries to excavate in these concrete tombs the enriched uranium, it's going to be a massive undertaking. I mean, you have Revolutionary Guards that are well equipped with all the arsenals, the various kinds of low-tech arsenals to take out any cordon that's around them. It's going to be messy. So if that's the end point, disable the nuclear capability that currently exists, and there's more than, I think Chris said, 400 kilograms that's been processed. That's a lot of cylinders. And I used to have one of the missions I would fly was I would take unknown ordnance from Germany, from as far back as World War One.
Unknown.
There were mustard gas nerve agents and things like this in sealed drums in the back of an aircraft. And the person that would be guarding it normally had a gigantic syringe, the kind of syringe you use for a horse. We wouldn't get them flying up front. And we'd say, well, guys, what are we carrying? They said, well, unknown. And we would fly them back to America.
Got to be nervous flying something like that, Bernie.
Yeah, a couple trips doing that. Flying it back, you go to places where they had old coal mines or salt mines, and the local counselors said, yeah, we'll take this long-term contract for storing stuff. I mean, America made out very costly flights. We were billing the Germans more than $10,000 a flying hour to fly it across. And then long-term storage, parts of New York, Utah, where this stuff is buried in the hills. Used to be coal mines or salt mines, and now they're shielded bunkers with stuff that's hopefully deteriorating in a good way.
Right.
But if it gets into the groundwater,
you're going
to have leukemia, cancer problems, birth defects that come out. And that's what's happened to the people that have been relocated to Eniwetok. So the high incidence of cancers, kids, a lot of miscarriages, much more than ever before in the natives. They're delivering jellyfish babies, they call them. So kids with massive congenital birth defects. And that's the problem with Iran. Iran having a capability to put into my little backpack a dirty bomb that just goes off somewhere. I mean, it'll explode just like a nuclear weapon always explodes. I mean, that people will die immediately close into the blast, and then up to like a kilometer away, there'll be residual effects. Radiation poisoning.
Yeah, radiation.
And then you have the dirty effects, the stuff that's hard to get rid of. Where do you put the rubble that's been contaminated? It's a mess. So if that is the end point, that's going to be really difficult to accomplish. And it's like, you see how it's going now with this immediate shock and awe that the current excursion has. This is much more tedious. I mean, the war plans we had for this, they were never considered as part of a risk matrix.
Yeah, and look, Trump hasn't been clear. He's kind of vacillated back and forth over what his end goal might be. But like, to go in as he has, as you say, that is the obvious end goal that you.
Well, it
and
is one of them.
He said
yeah.
we can't have Iran as a nuclear power. So that basically is the goal. Is there any way for him to get there?
See, I don't know if any Marine general, a Marine expeditionary force, he's deployed at least 500 of the specialists required to secure a perimeter in Qatar or someplace. He's moving Marines over there and bringing over the special C-130s. But I mean, then if the C-130s are also used, and you're going to have to fly out these cylinders, you're going to need to build an airstrip, secure the airstrip. I mean, it's off the map. Literally, that's why you negotiate a settlement. And that's why the International Commission was there to audit what they had, make sure the centrifuges weren't really producing above 60% capability. I mean, the low enriched stuff you can use for their own nuclear reactors and power the country. That's good. But it's a mess. I mean,
So was Trump right to pull out of the previous nuclear deal with Iran, and that it just wasn't doing what it said on the tin?
Well, it depends how you read that. I mean, they had access. They didn't have access to all the facility. That was one of the sticking points.
Yeah.
The inspectors weren't satisfied. They were seeing everything. And so now the other option is, okay, you put these bunker busting B-2 bombs in, and they're precision hits, and it did collapse some structures, but it probably didn't collapse the core material where the cylinders are being held.
Well, if that attack last year had been as successful as Trump said it was at the time, he wouldn't have needed to go in now.
Right. So obviously the weapons grade material, well, it's not weapon grade, but 60% enriched material is still there. And, you can make a dirty bomb with some of that, as Chris said. So now you're looking at something about 1.5 kiloton probably 20 of those weapons at 1.5 kiloton yield. And that in New York City, one at a subway in the Tube in London. I mean, it's just, there are jihadists around the world who gladly carry the backpack. And they don't have to be suicide bombers either. Just leave the backpack.
Yeah, leave it and run.
Yeah. Put it in the back of a car. Put it in a UPS truck.
And in terms of Iran's stated policy on Israel, it's likely, even though Trump said that they would hit Europe as soon within 24 hours, maybe not Ireland, but definitely Europe, he said, within 24 hours of acquiring bomb technology, it's likely that they would have gone for Israel first.
Yeah, well, I think part of that matrix of consideration didn't include the respect for the drones that Iran has. They were thinking about ballistic missiles or artillery shot, 155 millimeter artillery batteries. But if a drone can simply fly towards Air Force One with a nuclear weapon on it,
it wouldn't actually have to hit Air Force One, but explode anywhere within a kilometre.
The news you get, like you see, you thought you put us down, but look, you put out a new welcome mat for you, and it's highly radioactive. And it's just that it's an asymmetric war. They're able to extract pain. Ireland's feeling the pain. I mean, I posted a €2 screen of fuel a few days ago, and a Dutch woman came back and said, it's $2.70 over here. What are you talking about? You haven't even felt it.
$2.70,
a liter. God. So I mean, and America's feeling the pain, and it's not just that; it's the phosphates that's not coming through for the compound needed for fertilizer isn't getting out of the straits either. So American farmers
and people might not be aware that it's not just oil, because the oil industry is huge in terms of generation of plastics. All of the wrapping our products come with are going to get more expensive. And as you say, fertilizer is also, the urea is coming out of there. And somebody made the point, I heard it earlier this morning, Bernie, that because they can't get the fertilizer out, if they slow down production, they can't catch up. So we will actually have a deficit. So there will be less food produced because there's less fertilizer used. Now we're trying to cut down on fertilizer use, but going by current models of production, we're going to run into issues as soon as they slow down production.
Unexpected. And that's like I said, it's an asymmetric war, a small strait that they can... I mean, I used to fly into Oman, and they have a little island that's right at the edge of the smallest part of the strait with American troops there. But like you'd have to have American troops on the other side in Iran to make sure that nobody can fire a missile or launch a drone at a tanker going through that. I think it's 22 kilometers wide. That's part of the strait.
Yes, the shipping lane is even more tight. The available depth, So I thought Chris was explaining that really well. That all you need to do is load up a small tug or boat with explosives, and you can basically float it into the path of a big tanker and have a huge effect for a small plan or a small outlay or a small operation.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah. Okay, so going by what, and I know it keeps changing, but going by what Trump has been saying lately, do you think that he sees an end game?
I don't know who the Trump whisperer is. I think part of it is his base saying, "I love that video." So the White House video reels are. If you like shoot 'em ups and you like Top Gun and you like any kind of video game involving weapons,
but they actually mix the footage from video games and from films like Top Gun and other action movies in with actual news footage, don't they, Bernie? And they push this out as a sort of a rally around the flag thing. Look at this gung-ho stuff.
It's entertainment in a real perverse way. I mean, getting a crosshairs on top of they didn't show the school being hit in Iran, but I mean, getting these massive 5,000-pound bombs leveling a whole kilometer of space or destroying large buildings. People like seeing destruction, but they view it as an entertainment dopamine hit. And I think that's one part of it. As long as that keeps happening, he'll be happy that we're in this morass. I think if Bibi Netanyahu, I can never say his surname, is happy, and he's giving Trump compliments, Trump will keep doing it. He seeks approval, and he likes being seen as a person. He wants a legacy, but I'm not sure he's aware of the fact he's walked into a really sticky mess that's worse than Libya, worse than Afghanistan, and that's going to define part of his legacy to the point where he's going to lose control of the government as early as November.
Do you think so?
No, I think a lot of his people who voted for him, this would be Gen Z people, young males primarily, people that were influenced by Joe Rogan, they're going to say, I'm just not going to vote. And now that that loses at least 10% of the clout he used to have, because those people swung across to him, and now they're not going to vote because he didn't deliver, and they felt cheated. So that'll happen. And if he's at totally below 40, if he's at 40% or below, that's not going to carry the momentum needed to hold the Republican seats in the House. They're down to, I think, one seat that they're holding. Several of the independents vote for with the Republican caucus. But the House will flip. Everyone thinks that's going to happen. If the Senate flips, it could go from impeachment to conviction within a year. And now you have a real mess.
Yeah, if both houses flip, then he's essentially, at best, a lame duck president for the rest of his term.
Yes. Well, no, he would be impeached and convicted. That's what would happen. And just like Nixon, he's going to have to leave and keep, probably take a few more boxes with him as he goes. But that could happen. If it happens in November, then the new population of the representation will be in place by January, and it'll be a fast row to that. I also think there's some possibility with the people that Jack Smith, who was prosecuting him, being then realigned with the International Court of Justice to go after Hegseth or Trump as a war criminal. And that'd be tumultuous if that happens.
Yeah, and tell me, look, I some of the headlines I've been looking at in terms of polls in the United States show that there's not a lot of satisfaction with what Trump is doing at the moment. I'm just wondering, have you any insights? You mentioned you'd been home not so long ago to the States, visiting family. How are they viewing it? And how are their neighbours thinking about it?
Well, everybody, the car culture in America it's not like the Irish car culture, doing donuts on the road and all that, although that exists. There's a whole lot more dependency on vehicles, and Americans don't pay high excise on the fuel, so it's artificially low to pump fuel into your car. And now people are reaching the point where they have a job where they have to commute to it more than 30 miles normally, and now they can't make it back and forth for 5 days of work and still buy the meat that they would buy. So there is a consumption pattern where some items, which might have been delicacies, meat, high-end products in Whole Foods, they're not bought, and now people are thinking more down the Lidl-Aldi route. They're thinking of buying economy, okay? So that's happening, and close family members of mine are change what they eat, more pasta, for example. They also say, look, fuel costs a lot. And then the thing that is not even in part of this conversation is they're getting the new bills for their medical insurance. And some people jumped by €1,000 a month.
Directly down to Trump's plans, yeah.
So they're feeling all this pain, figuring out what can we give up. And then I think a lot of them are saying, I thought just like my grandparents, I would have a job, work, pension, and life afterwards. And now they realize it's not financially possible to take a holiday more than maybe 5 days long. And it might have to be just to the nearest national park, not going across the country to fly to Florida or another place. So I guess to answer your question, it'd be interesting to see how is the spending pattern holding up for spring break that's currently going to be running. So if Florida has a dip in a number of crazy parties during spring break, then you'll know, oh my God, it has affected the people with the greatest amount of discretionary income, college students partying hard.
Yes, dedicated partiers.
Yeah. So I'd wait for that to see how's that working.
And when is spring break traditionally? We've all heard the term, I think, over here. But what is it? Is it
right around the Easter break? Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah.
So that's not long.
I'd measure the heat of the population in terms of how's spring? Are the bookings down in Florida? Are the migrations from northern universities and colleges down in other areas down? Is domestic tourism down? Flights down? Then you'd have it.
And do you think Trump will take any cognizance of sort of that kind of data? It's really just the markets he looks at, though, isn't it?
He's a Dow. He quotes the Dow a lot. If you're a 401k, so most American pensions are linked to the stock market. So you'd see that he's not feeling any of that. The pain that that would normally be there would be if he couldn't fill out a banquet room in Mar-a-Lago with all the people who pay into for membership, but those people normally have higher level discretionary spending.
Yeah, it'll be a lot longer before they feel the effects of what's happening.
Just like most politicians, they don't always see what the common person's putting up with. You get more on the radio here than a lot of politicians get in constituency meetings. So Same in America.
Yeah, you had an insight as well. There was talk of a downed aircraft, a US aircraft. We know that there's been a small number of deaths among US personnel, but there was an aircraft incident. It was a refueling aircraft. Do you have a bit of expertise in that? Is there credibility to claims that it was shot down, or do you think there's another explanation?
No, it wasn't shot down. It was over airspace. You can find this at like flight radar sites that are available online. The telltale clue for me is an aircraft that returned to base that did not fall out of the sky had part of its tail missing, and you can't lose your tail unless you hit something. And the thing that he hit, so he hit the other aircraft, or the other aircraft hit him.
Yeah. So
then I try to figure out, okay, now how the most likely cause of that to happen based on what I've seen, it's that aircraft who landed successfully with its missing tail maybe approached under the other aircraft too fast or too high.
Yeah. And
the breakaway maneuver that would normally be done by the other aircraft wasn't fast enough or quick enough, or it was too fast, too high, and dangerous. That's the first thing I'd put into the mix. Somebody I was reading was saying, well, the aircraft that actually crashed was actually descended into the other aircraft. I'm thinking, that's so unusual. It's more probable to make sure that someone was proficient. They were practicing a hookup. And, I remember vividly from telling people, like, you hear the boomer, a boom is flown down to the aircraft to attach into the top of the aircraft and provide you fuel. So the boomer would normally say, slow your rate, and then use a couple other words which are directional to the person flying into the refueling position to do something like slow down or break away. And if that wasn't possible, because the person coming up for a hookup was carrying too much power, then the only way to prevent getting hit is for the other aircraft to pull up fast. If, however, the aircraft underneath was going too fast, then it would be possible that his tail was used as a serrated knife to go underneath the other aircraft, cutting all the cables, hydraulics, the pressurization, and it causes it'd be like hitting a balloon with a party balloon with a pin. That could have happened.
Right.
But
so what we're talking about is two planes. I'm sure people are familiar with it. One with basically a fuel pump hose that's dangling out, and you're saying it's always the plane that is refueling that comes up to the level of the tanker one. Yeah. But that there was obviously that there may have been some miscalculation there on their part, and they weren't able to correct in either plane.
It's difficult to do that. I mean,
it sounds incredibly difficult.
I used to, I can see the times I took aircraft away from people that were normally senior to me. I was a captain teaching people this. And the biggest thing was I'd be given instruction time with colonels and generals. And you have to be very careful about what you tell that person and how you tell it. And that, and the crew that you're with has to be confident that you're not going to walk them into a dangerous situation. Yeah. So it is so tough to the maneuver itself is tough, but then from the instructor's perspective, you have to let the person go to a point where you got to save it and then tell them, look, but can you see what you're doing wrong? And let them try it again. That could have happened. Now, I really don't like the fact that Pentagon's not revealing stuff. So you never know. There's more than 100 people have been injured, some with amputations in this excursion so far. So, I mean, getting details about how those two aircraft hit each other, it's going to be months before we see that. Okay. Look, Bernie, I'm sure you'll be back in to give more insight to Fran very soon. We do have to go to an ad break, Bernie. Thanks for your insights and really interesting take on all of that. It's not going to go away, folks. We'll be talking about it again. But now I better go just to this susbiog.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to Tipp Today with Donal in for Fran. Now, we are going to find out a little bit more about the health insurance market from a renowned expert at this stage, Dermot Goode. Dermot, can you hear me there? Good morning to you. How's things?
Good morning, Donald. All good?
Good, good. Did you have an interesting St. Patrick's Day?
Donald, I tell you, I did actually. I did get out, but I was doing a little bit of catch up, right? This is what happens when you take a few days off or whatever, but I did get out to our local parade, so it was all good now.
Yeah, very good. I hope there was a crowd, because that's what it's all about, getting people together, waving a few flags and hearing a bit of music or whatever it is. Dermot, the health insurance market, we're seeing prices go up everywhere, but the health insurance market has been keeping you busy recently.
Yes, unfortunately, and if I'm busy, that means it's not good news for consumers and for your listeners. So look, the 1st of April March and April is kind of it's a key point in the year, because what tends to happen is every March for the last few years, VHI goes up, and VHI have just introduced an increase, an average of 3%. And then following on their heels, we now see all the others are moving on their rates. So Irish Life Health have another average increase of 5.9%. going through from the 1st of April. And don't forget, they already went up on the 1st of January by 5%. So 3 months later, they have another significant price increase. Leia Healthcare going up by an average of 4.7% from the 1st of April as well. And Level Health from the 3rd of April, the levies are going up slightly. So they're passing on those levy increases as well. So no good news there. And I think, Donald, what your listeners need to be very careful of. So there's pitfalls in this. I mean, it's bad enough that rates are going up. So, for example, people are focusing on these averages. So they might think, so Leia, let's just take them as an example. They might think, okay, 4.7%, I can absorb that. But some of the plans are going up by double that. So like the Simply Connect Plus scheme, which is a very popular plan for people who want full orthopaedic cover, that's going up by nearly 10%. So people need to be very careful. Never rely on the averages. Always look and see what the impact is on your plan. But the second pitfall, which catches everybody out, is people are forgetting that it's not just this April increase. I mean, the rates went up with some in January. They all went up last October. So when you put all of the cumulative, all of the recent increases together in April, like, for example, that plan that I mentioned, Simply Connect Plus, I think that plan, the total increase will be 22% from the 1st of April, about €540. So people are forgetting about the previous increases. So I would say to all of your listeners now, prepare yourself for bad news, for big increases. Make sure you're sitting down when you open that email or open that renewal notice. And really the key thing is, what are you going to do about it? And I suppose the other thing, Donald, as well, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, we're now seeing, in particular, Leia are reducing benefits, particularly benefits for orthopaedic and ophthalmic procedures, so for the hip and knee and shoulder replacements. So if you're not careful, you could actually find yourself paying, we'll say, 10% more, but actually having less cover, because they are reducing some of those benefits. So really what it means for everybody now is the days of staying on the same plan indefinitely are gone. The days of just rolling your cover over and just taking the hit, they're gone as well, because you could end up with less cover. So you really have to shop around now, and hopefully today's discussion will help people, on how they do that to the best.
Yeah, I see you said somewhere that the worst thing you could possibly do at the moment is auto-renew. But people hate having to look through policy documents. I know I allowed my own recently to auto-renew. And if you get locked into the new policy, you're there for another year, aren't you? You can't just say, listen, I might change after a month.
No, and you're absolutely right. With VHI, so once your renewal passes with VHI, and by the way, don't forget, everybody has that 14-day cooling off period. So even if my renewal date, for example, was, let's just say the 8th of March with VHI, which is a common renewal, you actually have up until the 22nd of March, so you still have time. But once that time passes with VHI, yes, you are locked in for another year on the same plan. But with the other insurance companies, they will allow you to change your cover to a different plan that they offer any time during the year. So with the others, you do have that added flexibility. And like what I would say to everybody now, and look, I mean, it's the same with car insurance and home insurance and mobiles and utilities for me. I mean, it's torture going through it. One phone call. And I'd say to all of your listeners now, make one phone call to your current insurer when that renewal notice lands. So expect bad news, expect a big increase. And what you can do is, before you make that one phone call, just decide, well, what is my budget? So maybe my budget is what I'm currently paying, or whatever that might be. And then you phone up the current insurance company. You tell them it's too expensive. You're not renewing on that plan. And then you challenge them to check all of their plans. So get them to do the heavy lifting. I want you to check through all of your plans and see, do you have something similar or something, maybe a newer plan that you've launched that I'm not aware of, that gives me similar cover, but that fits my budget, and tell them what your budget is. Now, some people will think you should never tell an insurance company, exactly what your budget is. With other insurances, I would fully agree with that, but with health insurance, no. It doesn't compromise or undermine your negotiating position whatsoever, because all the rates are set. So tell them your budget, keep them on the call, and get them to go through all of the plans. You shouldn't be doing this, to see can they come up with something that gives you similar cover. And then if they do, then the next question is quite simply, okay, now tell me exactly how does that compare to my current plan? Like, what's changing? What am I losing? What stays the same? And if you like basically what they've said, the final question is, okay, well, now just to confirm, there is nothing else better that you've overlooked, no other corporate plan or whatever. And that's the best way to get the best deal. And if I can give you a very specific example of this, any families listening.
Yeah, go ahead.
Laya Healthcare have a great deal right now. I mean, amidst all the doom and gloom, but they have a great deal for families where you pay for the first child under 18. I would suggest put them on Inspire Plus or something like that. And then for the rest of the kids under 18, from the 1st of April, Flex 125 Choice. Flex 125 Choice. Brilliant scheme, and it's free for the next year. But for the second, third, fourth, fifth child under 18. But if you don't phone them up and ask for that deal, even though you're with Leia, you may not be offered that deal, and you could end up paying for each of your children and overpaying quite considerably. So that's why I always say to people, one phone call to your existing insurance company. You have nothing to lose by making that phone call. I mean, the worst case scenario is you'll come away thinking I need to stay in the same plan, but you have nothing to lose. But they're not going to phone you, so really the onus is on us as consumers to take the initiative here, engage with the insurance companies, and basically put them under pressure to find you a better deal that fits your budget and to keep your business. But doing nothing, Donald, all that means is you'll end up paying more money for less cover. And another call out, if I may, to all the young people listening now, your parents, your grandparents, your elderly relatives and neighbours, they're all on the old plans, like the old Plan B options with VHI or the Level 2 hospital with Irish Life Health. They are overpaying by thousands. They need your help. They need you to be with them when they're phoning the insurance company, because you could literally save them thousands of euro. And by the way, 50% of people who get a better deal, they get the better deal with the same insurance company. So that's why engaging with them to do that review is so important.
And tell me, how is that? Because look, that idea of ringing up and haggling and demanding might put a lot of people off. Are the staff that you get on the other end, I know they're you've said they're obliged to give you the information. Are they still friendly? Does it become adversarial?
No, do you know, Tom, I have to say the insurance companies, they know when you phone up and ask those questions. First of all the calls are recorded, number one. Number two, all the staff you speak to are what we call competent staff. That means they are all trained. They meet the central bank requirement for minimum competency. And look, they're expecting your calls. And once you ask the right questions, they know they're obliged to give you what we call best advice. They also know that the insurance company is accountable and responsible for the advice they give you. So you never phone up and ask what you recommend, because then they recommend the plans that suit them. And that's why, phrasing the question that and the way I mentioned, that's the way to do it. But no, I have to say, we get nothing but positive feedback from all the insurance companies when people engage like that. And by the way, one other little tip I would just give to people, sometimes they might try and, I won't say fob you off, but they might encourage you to leave the call early, and they'll say, look, we'll send you out all the details. Don't let them do that, because then you're right back where you started. You're going to have to go through the detail. It's torture. I mean, you will need counselling after going through all the documents, Donald. So we always... I
need counselling just at the thought of it, Dermot.
So don't do that yourself. I mean, literally what I would say is always get them on the phone, block out half an hour, have a big mug of coffee there, and look, if the savings are only going to be 50 or 100 euro, a lot of people just wouldn't bother. Donald, I can tell you right now, for people who are on the same plan, so how do you know you're overinsured or overpaying? If you're on the same plan for 5 years or more, if you're paying more than €2,500 per adult, if you have not looked at a corporate plan, if you don't have a small excess on your policy, if you have everybody on the policy all on the same plan, in other words, if you haven't split your cover, straight away they are the red flag that you are overpaying for your cover. And when they find out exactly what deals are there, And bear in mind, these corporate plans, so another call out, anybody now who has maybe, sons or daughters or relatives working in the big pharmaceuticals or the big companies.
Dermot, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but your line is breaking up a little bit. Look, I have an ad break to take here. I might see if Leanne can give you a shout back, Dermot, and we have a few questions to run through here, just because it is clicking in and out a little bit there. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to go to a quick break and we'll see if we can get a better line.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007. Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter or email tipptoday@tippfm.com.
Now, Donald Doyle here on Tipp Today this morning, and we're talking to Dermot Goode about health insurance. Dermot, can you hear me okay this time?
Yeah, hopefully that line is better now, Donald.
That's much better, Dermot, and thanks for bearing with us. Now, like I said, as usual, you're used to this anyway. There's loads of questions in. We'll try and get through as many of these as we can in the next little while, Dermot, if that's all right with you. So first off, someone has asked, can you explain the coverage benefits of the VHI healthcare plan compared to the Leia healthcare plan?
Now,
that's a bit general, is it?
It is a little bit general. Like what I would say, I need to know the exact plan name, but what I would say to people is that, look, in terms of good cover, I always say to people, you need to be covered for the public hospitals, but you also need to be covered up to semi-private in a private hospital. So that would be like the Bonds in, Cork, Limerick, Galway, Tralee and so forth, or even Whitfield and Waterford, those types of hospitals. You also should have good cardiac cover on your plan. And then these corporate plans that I keep mentioning, what I like about those plans is they give you money back on your routine expenses. So they'll give you like 50% back on every GP, every consultant, x-rays, blood tests. And those expenses, Donald, they can mount up. Like you can spend €700-800 just on outpatient expenses before you're brought into hospital for any procedure. Some really good corporate plans right now that are definitely worth checking out. So VHI, PMI 4316, these are all around €1,700. Leia have a brilliant plan at the moment called Connect Simplicity, which is €1,800. Irish Life Health have the Health Guide 2, which is €1,770. And then the new entrant, Level Health, they have a plan called Plan Pro, and that's about €1,500. So they're all really good semi-private corporate plans. And the key point for all of your listeners is that any corporate plan on the market, it doesn't matter what it's called or who it's for, anybody can join the plan. So the point I was making earlier is that if you have a family member who works in one of these pharmaceutical or corporate clients and they have amazing health insurance cover, you can actually phone that insurance company and ask for the same plan and they must give it to you. Now, you mightn't get the 10% corporate discount, but you can still access the plan. So those plans are available to everybody, irrespective of your age.
Very good. And that ties in with another question. Does the Aviva health insurance plan, again, maybe a bit general, but do they cover outpatient consultations and diagnostic tests? So I suppose what's their general track record?
Yeah, so they do. So here's the thing. If you have the right plan, and that's why, once again, you see a lot of people who are languishing on the old plans, they don't give you what we call day-to-day cover. So day-to-day cover is literally where you get 50 to 75% back on all of those routine outpatient expenses. So, for example, if you're with Irish Life Health and you're on Health Guide 2 or Health Guide 3, or you're on Horizon 2, 3 or 4, or even 4D Health 2, 3, 4, those plans, they all give you excellent refunds on your outpatient expenses. But if you're on older plans, you may find that you don't have that cover. And by the way, Donald, here's another myth. People often think, like people would say to me, well, I didn't bother sending in the receipt because I don't want it to affect my premium. The great thing with health insurance in Ireland is that there's no bonuses for not claiming, which means there's no penalties for claiming. So the golden rule is you send in every receipt to the insurance company. If you're not sure if it's covered or if you've claimed it already, you send everything into them and let them work it out for you. And anybody who has health insurance, make sure you have the app on your phone. because the great thing now is you can literally open up your phone, take a photograph of the receipt as soon as you're out of the GP, and you fill in a few details on your phone, hit submit, and the receipt has gone straight to your insurance company, and the money will be in your bank account within 2 to 3 days. And once again, no penalties for claiming, so claim for absolutely everything.
Very good. Here's a quick yes or no, Dermot, that I think I know the answer to. Are maternity and childbirth services included in VHI plans, and what are the associated costs? My understanding is they're included in every plan because of gender equality.
And it's one of the things that frustrates people. So, once again, another message to your listeners on this. If you see benefits on your plan, maternity, psychiatric, convalescence, substance abuse, alcoholism, and so forth, there's a piece of legislation called minimum benefits, which requires the insurance companies to put those benefits on every plan. So every plan has them. So if you see things that aren't relevant, just ignore it completely. But another tip for everybody is that, just on maternity alone, no plan fully covers maternity. You'll get roughly maybe 50% of your cost back. So we always say to people, look, if let's say you're planning a family or you're now pregnant, the first call, make that call to the insurance company. Tell them exactly, what has changed. Tell them where you're planning to go, which hospital, which consultant, and they in turn will tell you what your benefits are. So there's no penalty for disclosing any new conditions or anything that you might be planning to the insurance company. In fact, we recommend you engage with them because now you'll know what's covered by your plan, and they'll advise you how to use it or get the best use out of your plan, if that makes sense.
Okay, very good. We're coming up against another ad break and news, folks. But Dermot, you've already answered another question in which was asking, does the VHI Essential Plan include coverage for mental health services? And as you say, that those are all included as a minimum.
Yeah. So look, the good thing once again, if anybody living outside of Ireland, for example, there's little or no cover for what we would call mental health psychiatric benefits, but there's a minimum requirement of 100 days on every plan. So, look, that's a positive aspect of our legislation, that every plan has to have a minimum standard of cover. But if it isn't relevant to you, just ignore it. But the main thing I would say to everybody is, look, you check all treatment in advance with your insurance company just to make sure you're fully covered. So check everything, claim everything, and never auto-renew your cover. And as I say, hopefully you won't be using your cover anytime soon.
Very good. Dermot, look, there's loads more questions we could have got to if we had time. I'm sure we will talk to you again and try and fit some more of those in. But as I say, we are up against an ad break. Thank you very much, Dermot, for joining us. Dermot Goode of Health Insurance Ireland.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Now, welcome back to the last hour of Tip Today on this Wednesday, the 18th of March, with Donald Doyle here in for Fran, who should be back tomorrow. As I said, we have a lot of questions came in for Dermot Goode. We only got to a few due to the time constraints, but Dermot had good advice for everybody, and largely it was to give them a ring, put them under pressure, and see what they can, if they can give you a better offer. In most cases, he reckons they can. Hopefully, if you want to get back, he'll be on again, and we'll get to more questions the next time he's on with Fran. Now, I'm delighted to be joined in studio by our Agony Aunt Phil this morning. Phil, good morning to you. How are you? How was your St. Patrick's Day?
Very quiet and relaxed, Donald. Now it was a nice old day.
I like the sound of relaxed.
Yeah. Didn't do anything much. It was grand.
Very good.
Yeah.
Any special St. Patrick's Day traditions for you?
None really. I suppose there was a time when I was on the council and that where there was an expectation that you'd be dressed up in your robes and doing parades and all sorts of things, and then up on the truck
judging
doing views, which was lovely. But it's nice then to have the newer people doing all that and representing. So it's nice to take a break from it if you want to.
Very
so,
good.
yeah, yesterday was a jammies day, really.
Oh, very nice. Yes, and it was kind of weather for it. I was out at the Thurles Parade and it was fairly Baltic, but the rain stayed away, which is the main thing. I think everyone's used to getting frozen at a Paddy's Day parade, but we have ways of warming up afterwards.
Well, there's ways and means.
Ways and means. Very good. Phil, we have a couple of questions for you today that I'm going to throw at you. I'm sure you know the drill and you're more used to it than I am, but we have a letter in, Phil, that says, Dear Phil, because that's the name of the slot. I'm writing because I feel deeply conflicted about something that's been weighing on me for a long time. I've been married to my husband for 15 years and in many ways I know how fortunate I am. He's a genuinely kind and supportive man who's always stood by me through life's ups and downs. He's patient, dependable and the sort of partner many people would feel lucky to have. The problem is that somewhere along the way I seem to have lost the feeling of attraction I once had for him. I care about him deeply and respect him, but the spark that used to be there isn't anymore and I can't help feeling terribly guilty. This makes it even harder because he hasn't done anything wrong. If anything, he's been nothing but good to me, which makes my feelings seem more unfair. I find myself worrying that there's something wrong with me or feeling this way after so many years together. I don't want to hurt him, this person says, and I certainly don't want to throw away a marriage based on friendship and loyalty, but at the same time she says she's struggling with the sense that part of me has drifted quietly away. Is this something that happens naturally in long marriages, or is it a sign that something deeper has changed? I would really value your advice on how to navigate these feelings without causing unnecessary pain to someone who has always been so good to me. A lot in that one, Phil. Where would you start?
Well, there's a lot in it, and I think there's always an element where we can start overthinking what's going on in a relationship. You're not going to have that spark and excitement of love's young dream and when you meet up first, when all the excitement is there. And I suppose we do get used to living with somebody, to being with somebody, to loving somebody, and it seems overall there's nothing whatsoever wrong with this marriage. There's a feeling that somehow she's missing out on some aspect of life. But I think everybody probably feels at some point that, you know, you can really, really love your partner and sometimes you could just give them a kick. You mightn't like them at all, and that's okay.
I will make no comment here.
There's no issue. It's not a wrong thing. You're just not going to feel that first flush of love and devotion and just being so into this person, because we all get used to our partners. We all get used to the same old thing. We get used to, you know, stability. We get used to having them there, and that's all the positive things. Some of the positive things is that they have other interests as well. They might be interested in doing other things other than you, or you might change or not feel as, you know, as fit as you used to be or whatever. But there's every issues in relationships that are long term. There is an element where you have to work at it. Sometimes you just have to decide to make a date night and go out on those nights and go out and have maybe something to eat or go and do something different than you would normally do. And it's like being back at love's young dream and you just think, oh my gosh, wasn't it great when we didn't have children, or when we didn't have this, or we didn't have animals to be minding and all the rest of it. But really, there's nothing at all wrong with this relationship, and overthinking is not a good thing. To think that, oh, there has to be something more in life, because this is your life and your life is about making the best of it. And she, you know, I mean, there would be an element where she might decide she needs to go and talk to someone, maybe a counsellor or somebody that can advise her about what's the normality of relationships. But looking over at this letter, it seems like she has a very balanced relationship with a lovely man. So I would not over worry.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's two things. One, that she's got this fear of missing out, as you put it, but also then she's feeling guilty for, and we're assuming it's a she because she does mention marriage and it's 15 years, which would probably indicate it's a she.
And she says as well that he hasn't done anything wrong. If anything, he has been nothing but good to her, which makes my feelings seem more unfair. I find myself worrying that something is wrong with me for feeling this way after so many years together. together. And
So
it's
she does
not,
need to do something here because she's got this guilt as well.
she's got the guilt, but the guilt is for no reason except that she doesn't feel that when she met this man and she adored, that she has the same feeling of adoration. We all get used to our partners when it's in a long term, and I think it's important, as I said, to do the date nights or to do something nice for each other, to do something unexpected, or to just say, look, I really appreciate having you around, and I needed to talk to you about something, and you were really good in how you dealt with that. So, there's nothing wrong with this relationship at all. It's completely normal.
Yeah. And your advice then is just to try and re-engage rather than allow it to drift apart.
Absolutely. Just say to do the date nights, to decide that where if she has, say, a menu for a week, decide to spice it up. Whatever way you can take that, whatever way you like.
Oh, yeah?
But just, do something different. Put a bit more energy into something. Light a candle when, instead of maybe just setting the table or screeching at someone, come for your dinner, or it'll be in the dog. So, yeah, I think the relationship sounds pretty balanced, and don't overthink when something is fine. You're not going to be in the first flush of love and devotion all of the time. It would be so boring if we were like that. We should drive someone cracked.
Yeah. Well, it's unsustainable over the long term, we'd have to say. I have another one for you here, Phil. Dear Agony Aunt, I'm writing because I've found myself feeling increasingly lonely over the past few years. After caring for my elderly parents for a long time, I lost them both not so long ago and now live alone in the family home. I do try to keep busy and get out when I can, whether that's walking into town, going to local events, or simply being around people. But what I would really like is to meet someone and build a relationship. I make an effort to look presentable and be polite and respectful when I meet women, but the truth is they never seem to be interested in me beyond any brief conversation. I've started to wonder whether the problem might be that I'm a bit old-fashioned in the way I approach things. I was brought up to be courteous and perhaps a little reserved, and I'm not the sort of person who feels comfortable with the more casual ways that people seem to meet and date these days. I worry that I might come across as awkward or out of step with modern expectations, even though my intentions are sincere. I'm not looking for anything extravagant, just companionship and someone to share life with. Do you have any advice for someone like me?
It's a very good question, and it's very well put. And this man seems to be quite balanced. Now, there's a whole lot of things that people can do in the hope of meeting somebody, but if you go in with the intention of, I need to meet someone now and I need to get into a relationship, it's kind of, you almost like fuss yourself out of doing that. Much better to go join a hill club, a hill walking club, a cycling club, go on wood walks, go to painting classes, go to night classes. They're all opportunities where you're there just to be yourself and see what the class is about, or the painting is about, or the walking is about, or what kind of group you have. When you don't overthink something, it can just evolve into, after the walk you might go for a pint, you'll meet someone there, or go for someone that walks with, and keep it light and keep it natural. If there is to be a relationship, that will fall naturally into place for this man. And I really would say that to get and expose himself to doing new things, which are oftentimes difficult for people, because if you're used to not walking, for instance, you just think, geez, I'll be dead if I go up to the top of that hill. I won't be, I'll be shook. You get used to everything. You have to do things incrementally and do what you can do. But there's an opportunity every time you go out with a group of people. There's an opportunity to be able to chat away. Don't go out with any preconceived ideas or looking for a relationship. That will happen naturally.
And this person seems to say that they don't like the idea of going on a dating app. I think that's what they're getting at. They're a bit old-fashioned and don't like it to be casual. You wouldn't be advising them to shake things up by doing something maybe out of their comfort zone like that.
It might not be a wrong thing, but it does seem like this person seems to be quite sociable already. And I just think that sometimes if you're looking then to get very specific and say, I need to find a partner, someone I can give companionship to, they'll give it to me, and we can develop into a relationship, and it'll be meaningful and it'll be lovely. And that is what will happen most likely if you don't overthink it. And I think one of the worst things for people might be, you're thinking, oh, here's this man coming down to talk to me now, and honest to God, I find him quite boring. And you either have to sort of say to yourself, it's nice to be nice, it's nice to be civil, and it's nice to be friendly, and it's nice not to be in a relationship if you don't choose it. And you can deal with that. And this man sounds bright and intelligent, and I think if he relaxes about the situation, a relationship can evolve for him at some point.
Yeah, I suppose the situation, of course, is very sad. He's been caring for his parents, lost both of them, probably, it sounds like, in quick succession.
It's such a big
and is
loss.
left now, wouldn't have been looking for a relationship, obviously, if they were focused on caring at the time, and now is there rattling around in an empty house with time on their hands
and that's it,
and a hole in their life.
And the fact that they lost both of them quite close together is a very, very seismic shift in what was normality for him. And of course an empty house where you still have all the pictures and you have all their belongings, you have everything that meant so much to you, and now that they are gone. But that is a fact of life. That will happen every one of us. You know, so I would just say that go and walk, go to some classes, go to night classes, do something different and see how he gets on. But don't go from one thing to another in the hope that, well, somewhere I'll find somebody. That's not going to happen. It happens quite naturally. And do you know what? When you stop thinking about, I have to find a partner, it can happen quite naturally.
Yeah, so don't treat every woman you meet as the next Mrs. whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's putting pressure on them and you.
Well, it's also kind of you're not getting to know somebody truly if you just identify them, say that's the person now I want to be with, and I'm whatever. Because most relationships they can wax and they can wane for a while, and somebody can get back in touch and it can be very, very nice for them. But like you can't just say, well, now I'm ready for a relationship, I'm going to go out, going to find a woman, she's going to be available, and we're going to go out and then we're going to get married at the end.
That'd be very simplistic. All right. Look, so I suppose the advice is to relax into it, and keep getting out there,
and enjoy meeting people, and don't feel that you have to keep talking to just one person, because it can make them feel, oh gosh, they've really honed in on me now. Go and walk with at different levels. Fall back now and again, fall forward now and again, go and talk to someone else. Keep yourself nice and chatty and personable, and you know what? They'll meet whoever they want to meet.
Yeah, so you're saying to back off a little bit as well.
Yeah, and chill. Yeah, because it's not all about, well, now my parents are gone, I need to find a partner. There's an evolvement here. It's very big loss to have lost your parents and then find that now the emptiness in the house is really rattling loud. So it is good that this person would start doing a few new things. Now, I don't mean that he should join, say, the walking club and the cycling club, and he should do all of that. You can go for a swim one day a week. You can go for, you can go to the cinema. It's okay to go to the cinema on your own. It's quite nice. Now, some people might find that a bit odd, but in fact, some people might just want to go and see a film and see what's like.
Not unusual about going to the cinema on your own. You can't talk in there anywhere. You shouldn't be.
Well, sometimes there's a lot of talking. But it's just that it's nice if you can do that, and then just go maybe and have a pint on the way home, or not a pint, just go and have a drink or whatever, and just be kind of natural, and don't get so focused and hung up on, gosh, I really need to be in a relationship now. It's like replacing the loss of his parents with just something that's going to keep him fulfilled and satisfied. whereas this is another journey for him, really.
Yeah, fill the time some other way and the rest will come.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've one more for you, Phil, if you don't mind. Dear Phil, starts letter number 3. I'm writing about something I feel too embarrassed and confused to talk about with anyone in my life. Over the past few years, I've noticed myself becoming more and more afraid of things that never used to worry me. I find myself feeling anxious about ordinary situations like going shopping, socialising, or even just being around people. The strange thing is that I can't point to any particular event that caused it. The only change I can really identify is that I spend a lot of time scrolling through social media, doom scrolling, I think that is called, often reading worrying stories and arguments around the world and politics, I assume. I sometimes wonder if constantly taking in this kind of content has slowly made me more fearful without me realising it. Lately, I've also noticed that I feel uneasy about meeting people from overseas because of all of the heated talk about immigration online and in the news. What troubles me most is that this doesn't feel like the real me at all. I never personally had a bad experience with anyone from another country, and in the past I would have considered myself open-minded and friendly. Now I feel like my mind is filling with worries that don't match my values. I don't want to become someone who is constantly afraid of the world or of other people, and I would really appreciate your advice on how to break out of this pattern and feel more like myself again.
I think it's a really excellent letter, and it's about, I suppose, not getting value from her life. Now, the social media thing can drive you crazy, and I really think there should be a limiting on. The iPad should turn itself off, or your phone should turn itself off.
You can. There are apps that will do this for you, but sure, people don't do it, and they don't call it doom scrolling for nothing.
I know, but it is doom scrolling, and it can cause people to get very, very worried about something that really doesn't affect them directly, but they're allowing the effect of something that might be happening. Or Donald Trump has said something today, and it's completely at variance with what we believe, or he starts a war, and then the consequences of that have an effect here on our economy, for instance. Like there's a back kick from that. But I would advise this woman to, first of all, to stop feeling embarrassed about feeling like this. There could be an element of a bit of anxiety or depression in the way she's talking, and definitely I'd say could help with a bit of counselling advice. And there are counsellors that are very good, that are free and available, and they really are very, very good people to deal with. If she
actually says she is feeling anxious, so it is a bit of anxiety here.
Absolutely.
And actually, there is a lot of research saying that anxiety levels globally have been going up as we could become more and more exposed to and dependent on social media.
Exactly, and so there is an element with social media where you're being bombarded with kind of images and newses that really don't affect us, but they do affect us because we get very worried. For instance, you think about if you have family elsewhere or in another country, and you think, what if they're invaded? What if this happens? What if that happens? And you can just get into a tizzy, and that's a feeding of anxiety. And the anxiety leads to more worries, and then you're worried about having anxiety, and then you're anxious because you're worried. And it's just, sometimes you need maybe to go and have some maybe short-term medication, which can be very, very good. If you say that you go to the doctor and say, I'm really not feeling myself at all, I'm worried and upset and frightened about things now, and I feel like I could need something. And you could say, can I try something for 12 weeks? And it can be something as a mild antidepressant where you feel that will help you get through it. Now, you don't want to get somebody into a cycle of saying,
medication.
Well, I'm depressed now and I need medication. There are sometimes you just need something for a period of time, and then you start, when you take that medication, if it does what it says on the tin, you will begin to feel better. And the idea is that you're not going to be on this medication forever. You're going to be on it for a period of time. And if you feel better, start taking it every second day. Then go to every third day. And you can wean yourself off very easily by doing that. If you feel you need to go back on it, go back on it. It shouldn't be an issue. But there are people that are anxious because doom scrolling, as you call it, which is very relevant, is a real thing where you see something you might never normally have heard. We're hardly listening. We're consumed by iPads and our iPhones and having to have our phone with us every second. And it's almost like, you know, I went off the other day and left my phone behind me. I wasn't a bit bothered about not having my phone because I just thought to myself, shit, that's grand. That's one less thing I'm looking at now.
There's very few people would say they're fine with leaving their phones behind nowadays.
Yeah, I know, but it's just sometimes that it's nice to feel that you can do that. You're not married to your phone. You know, but it is, people are very, very stuck on phones. We all have them. I have it here on the desk. Now it is turned off right enough, but there is, for this person, this kind of element of depression and anxiety that can be solved. And as I explained in going on medication for a short term, there's a way of getting off of that medication again, and it works very, very well.
Yeah, so look, a chat to the GP is really the first
GP, or even what they do now is they have advanced nurse practitioners, and they're able to go and do the prescribing and the medication, and then send you texts every so often, say how are you doing, and if you need to call into us, please do. But it's one of those texts that you can't reply to, and you just call into the GP and say, or to the advanced nurse practitioner and say, I'd like to have a chat with them again.
Yeah, and it's not something like any mental health issue isn't something to be embarrassed about. It's one of the first things they said in this letter.
It's a very common thing. A lot of people say, I am too embarrassed or confused to talk about with anyone in my life. And it is being too embarrassed.
That's the basic problem, isn't it? They're on their phone, but they're not talking to people in their actual life. They're becoming isolated, and that's feeding the anxiety.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about feeding anxiety. And there is a way. Sometimes you just have to action that and see, what do I need to do about this? Or you might decide, I'm going to give myself a half an hour on this, looking at this, and then I'm putting that away. And you need to be able to put that thing down.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. My first mobile phone was a work phone, so in the early days I used to be very good. I said, just turn it off.
Yeah.
Because I would when I wasn't working or on call. But nowadays, nobody turns their phone off unless it runs out of battery.
Yeah, well, this is it. And then you have the whole thing, wait, have I got a charger?
Yeah.
And now, of course, they've chargers for everything.
Yeah. Look, Phil, good advice there. Look, it's not something to be embarrassed about, and you do need to talk to somebody about it. So if you're not going to talk to your friends or family, just have a quick chat with your local doctor's surgery, and they should be able to help you out. Phil, thanks very much for coming in and being a rock of sense.
Dawn, it's a real pleasure to be with you today.
No problem.
And hope everybody is okay with the chats.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil. We better go to an ad break, folks, but we'll be back after this.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Welcome back to Tipp Today. We're in the last half hour for this Wednesday, the 18th of March, the day after St. Paddy's Day, and the traditional shamrock ceremony in the White House. We've been talking about it a fair bit, and regular contributor to the show, Pat Mullally, has been listening. He's got a few opinions on the whole thing himself. Pat, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Donald. How are you keeping?
I'm not too bad at all, Pat. Did you have a nice St. Patrick's Day, or were you keeping a close eye on what Micheál Martin was up to in the US?
Both. I was watching the parade in our native town here of Cllr, which was a fantastic parade.
Good, I'm glad it went well.
And then that went absolutely brilliant. Crowds of people on the streets and lovely music, and everybody from men's shed down to what they call it, trucks from Dalton's. It's amazing the amount of stuff that was in the parade. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I came back then straight away home to watch the proceedings in the White House to see what way Micheál Martin would have been accepted, number one, by Trump, and how he would respond to the thing. And I was very pleased with his demeanour inside in the White House. He left Trump ramble on for about 30 minutes or thereabouts, and then he just retaliated with it. Well, he didn't retaliate, he really rebuffed Trump in his talking about immigration and stuff like that, and also the fact that he actually supported one of our allies, which is important, that's Cllr Starmer, and because he had met him last week in Cork. And like, in fairness, we have Anglo-Irish relations between England and Ireland, and we wanted to keep those there. And he wasn't going to let Trump off, and he complaining about Cllr Starmer not giving him 2 aircraft carriers to fight a war that he started himself. So I enjoyed the fact that Micheál Martin was diplomatic in the way he...
Yeah, I was going to say, Pat, do you not think rebuffed now might be a bit of a strong term? I thought, and maybe you'll think I'm just being messy with semantics, but what Micheál Martin did was he didn't contradict him or such, but he kind of countered him, I suppose is the word I'm looking for.
Well, I still would use the word rebuffed, because he wanted to mention about the immigration. Of course, Trump is anti-immigration, and he wanted to, and he always complained about Europe being a swamp for immigrants coming into it.
Yes, a basket case.
I was on about, and in that case, then Micheál Martin just kind of, he gave him a history lesson as regards what Europe was like, and told him that our economy was a booming economy because we had brought in migrants in to work inside in the country. And he also had to speak about the trade that was between Ireland and the US, which is a very, very important thing. And if you look at Ireland itself, like, Ireland has 972 American companies here operating in Ireland. Now, it's only when I started doing a bit of research that this was kind of a shock to me. And 480 of those are outside of Dublin, down in geographically placed around the country.
All around, yeah.
Dome is in
out the road here, yeah.
For years. And like, if you look at it, there's 245,000 employees, and that was up to 2023, directly employed in American companies in Ireland. Like, that's a huge employment force. Manpower inside it equates to about 8.5% of employment in Ireland. You can imagine if these companies left, all because of a whim of a president, and left Ireland. Look at the state we would be in, or we didn't be no longer an economic country.
Well, he's already said he wants them to all come home, hasn't he?
He just wants them all to come home. But the thing about it is, like, Ireland is strategically placed as a gateway for trade from the US into Europe. Strategically placed. And of course, also the fact is that we have our 12.5% corporation tax. And that is important that we have that. And that's why other countries in the EU, and including our next door neighbour, Britain, are the envy of how we can have our 12.5%. And of course, France have looked at the possibility of reporting us to the EU to stop that and have a kind of a fair taxation among all the countries inside it. But we retained our 12.5%, and this encourages the companies. Like, if we look at the headquarters of Google and PayPal and Facebook and those, Meta, they have all come to Ireland, and they're massive employers in our economy, and that's important. There's also, if you look at the fact is that the Taoiseach, the leader of our country, as we call it, went over to America. There's 38 million people, citizens in the United States, that are of direct descendants to Ireland. Like, that was even, Trump hinted a small little bit at that, because we're only a small nation, he said, of 5 million or so. But there's 38 million inside in the United States that are of Irish descent. They'd like to see a leader coming from the old sod over to America and look at it. The fact also that there was, I read on a US Daily Mail press release that there was a promise of $5 billion of an investment, $5 billion of an investment of an Irish company, Smurfit, into the United States, and that's happening next year. Like, that's huge. If you look at the possibilities of what Ireland can give to the United States.
And Micheál Martin wanted to make a big deal about the amount of money that we're already investing. There's loads of Irish companies that have work and contracts in America. He was trying to make that point last year. I think maybe, do you think it landed a bit better this year? I think from early morning with JD Vance, the trade between the two countries was being vaunted a little bit more, trumpeted a little bit more.
I think it did, yeah, because like if you look at corporate Ireland's total investment stock in the United States is $322 billion, and that was in 2023, and that was greater than the total stock of Spain, Belgium, and China together. Now China has only 28 billion of an investment in stock in the United States if you compare it, and like our investment of 322 billion is huge. And that Irish affiliates in the US generate some 183 billion in sales in 2022, more than Italy, Belgium combined. Do you know what I mean? So, like, there is a huge investment in the United States, and it's important for the States too, because we have a very well-educated, tech-savvy workforce in Ireland, and we can give that to the States. That type of thing, especially for R&D research, which roughly generates about $5 billion in the States, $5 billion. So, like, our workforce that are working in the States, our workforce that are working here in Ireland, contributing to the American companies that are here are very important for it. And I think that Micheál Martin, in fairness to him, he was the perfect statesman, the perfect diplomat, the perfect diplomacy was given to the likes of Trump, because Trump is volatile. He could say anything inside there. And if he actually hinted at a few things. If you look at it, he hinted at, say, the immigration policies that are in Europe. He also hinted at Ukraine, which Trump dissed Zelensky the last time he met him inside there. Now, he wasn't going to go down the road of speaking about the Iran war, even though he did mention it. But he didn't go down the road. Trump was all about, there was these weapons of mass destruction, we'll call them, the nuclear bombs that would be delivered in a month. So last year, now in October, when he bombed Iran, he said that they were gone, obliterated.
Yeah, so obliterated was the term he used, that's right.
And produce another bomb.
Yeah, as we discussed with some of our experts earlier, if it was as successful last year as he said it was, he wouldn't have needed to go in this year. But he doesn't correct himself.
He doesn't correct himself, and the thing about it is, then he's a constant liar, because he told porkies inside in the White House on I think it was on Monday, when he said that he was speaking to a former president, and I won't give you his name. And when the media started to fact check. The four living presidents that are there, ex-presidents that are there, none of them has spoken to Trump. So, like, you see, who is he talking to? The mirror, and that he's looking at the mirror, and he's looking at himself inside there from the last time, 45, when he was president, on the 45th term.
Yeah, so look, Trump is volatile, and we all know, remember the ambush on Zelensky with JD Vance and Donald Trump. So look, that is a danger. But look, the criticism from the opposition here is that it's a missed opportunity. We had, for example, Kaja Kallas, the senior foreign affairs commissioner in the EU, was out yesterday making a clear link between Ukraine and Iran and saying there's a breakdown in international law, which the attacks on Iran clearly are, no matter what you think about the regime that was in there. And we didn't take that.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that statement there. And the thing about it is, like, Trump effectively, like, if you listen to what it is, and Pete Hegseth as well. Pete Hegseth he was preparing for war ever before there was an attack on Iran. He changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War, and America wasn't at war at the time. So, like, what was that all about? And Hegseth coming out there now saying that there'll be no quarter when they're actually going into bomb and putting troops on the ground. In other words, they're going to kill anybody that they're not going to take prisoners. They're just going to kill. And that's one of the statements that I think it violates the war. It violates the conflicts And it is a
rule, like he said, no pussyfooting around war, terms of engagement, and all the normal. I suppose if it's not an oxymoron and a contradiction in terms, sort of civilized war that would go by international, what we consider international law, all the international treaties. Hegseth has said that's all out the window.
It's all out the window. And the thing about it is, even Zelensky offered his expertise, and he actually said it in the Parliament in the UK yesterday when he met Keir Starmer and the members of Parliament. He said that he had offered his expertise in drone fighting. He said that what they have done inside, that they have monetized the drone warfare in Ukraine. They're successfully able to take out Russian missiles when they come in using drones. Drones, it means that there's no life lost, that they're not put, you know what I mean? So, he said that he's offered his expertise in the United Arab Emirates to Dubai and to places like that he would have those.
I don't think it's doing him much good, though. I think he has said recently, look, the worst thing that could have happened for him in the war in Ukraine was Donald Trump going in on Iran. Look, overall, you thought Micheál Martin did well anyway, Pat. I
think Micheál Martin done an excellent job, and I was very proud of the fact and proud of the man. In the sense of being, I'm a Fianna Fáil man myself, and he's Fianna Fáil obviously as well, and I might be a little bit biased in one sense, but listening to the media in the United States and looking at Trump's, not Trump's social, looking at threads, looking at Twitter, looking at Facebook, and to see what the Americans think of what happened, because they love to see the likes of Trump being kind of quieting down a small bit, because he has a lot of rhetoric built under his skin that it could have went anywhere. And as well as that, Micheál Martin was in a cauldron there, because right opposite him was J.D. Vance and Mark Rubio, which they would have jumped in on top of with Trump as well, because they're protagonists, you know. So that didn't happen. I think that he got away very good, and he represented Ireland very, very well.
Yes, well, Vance was famously wearing shamrock socks, so he was all about Ireland on the day. So I think Micheál Martin would have known that he wasn't going to be ambushed by Vance this time around anyway. Listen, Pat, thanks very much for joining us. I have to go to an ad break. Pleasure, thank you very much. I'll go to an ad break, folks, and we'll be back with speaking hopefully to Siobhan McGowan.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938 007.
Now, welcome back to the last bit of Tipp Today for this Wednesday. We have a programme focusing on Tipperary and the Shane McGowan Unravelling Shane tour that's been started up. I've covered this a bit in news over the last little while, and I'm joined on the phones now by Siobhan McGowan. Siobhan, how are you this morning? How's things?
Hi, Donal. Things are good. We had the St Patrick's Day parade here yesterday in Nina.
Yeah, and how'd it go? You were in a prime position to enjoy that one.
They actually trusted me to be Grand Marshal, which was a risk, but I pulled it off, and we had a fantastic day here in Nina. So I'm feeling well this morning.
How's the arm from all that waving?
Not too bad. Yeah, I practiced a bit.
Brilliant. So it was a good day anyway.
Yeah, it was
There's
lovely.
So much on in Nina for it. It's brilliant.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
And Siobhan, you've been interviewed for this new TV programme. It's on Nationwide. Look, there's been a lot of interest, Siobhan, hasn't there, in Shane's links and how, I suppose, how it cultured and educated him and his outlook on life with Nina and all the areas around mentioned in this tour. We'll get to some of the details on that. But like the interest in it, every time I'm in Nina now, I see people, fans at the mural taking selfies. It's becoming so well known. I think Shane might have liked that, would he?
Oh, well, he would have loved it. Because this place, you can't overstress how important Nina and all the Lochderg area and all the villages and hamlets around here were to Shane. I mean, he totally absorbed them from a very little boy. I mean, I mean, I just remember we had the conversations when he was like 10, 11. Like, you know, it's just something that we instinctively knew about Tipperary and Ireland, and he was in particular just obsessive, and he would just stay here till the nth time. We'd come and collect him off the bus with his cap on, smelling of the fire, because he would stay until he had to come back to school in England and all that kind of stuff. So you can't overstress it. So, I mean, that's why it would have meant an awful lot to him to be so recognised here. And you're right about the mural. The mural was probably the first tribute, I suppose, to him, or link him to the town. And people have been coming from far and wide now, worldwide, to have their photographs taken and pay pilgrimage to him. And the tour grew from that centre point, you know.
Yeah, they were looking, I suppose, asking about his history. And we'll talk a bit about the tour, because I know you were involved in it. I have one of the brochures myself. Tipp County Council and Rosemary Joyce were good enough to give me one day. And it has that wonderful scribbly self-portrait of Shane on the cover. And then this map of all the areas that would have meant so much to him. There's stops in Kearney, Kilbarron, Nina, Bursicane, Puckane. Tell us a bit about developing that.
Okay, so what happened was, because people were coming, and we knew they were coming, and Mike Malampy, who's very coordinator of the tour, he was getting calls to take people around, you know, ad hoc. So it just came about that we were talking, and I said to him, have you ever thought about doing a tour? Because I'd heard about this poor woman who had thought the Shannon, Carrick-on Shannon was, you know, because it said Shannon, that must be to do with Shane, like, you know.
Oh dear.
And she came from France with her daughter. They had to keep travelling down. So I felt, God, this is awful. So Mike really wanted to do it. He'd been thinking of it for a while. So we went into Carmel Ormond, who's the destination Lough tourist officer in Tipp County Council, and she just straight away said, yes, let's work on this. So Mike and I put together 11 points on the map that would have meant an awful lot to Shane. So that's how we started to develop it.
And I know there was huge interest from all over the world. I was getting regular updates from Rosemary Joyce, in fact, about some of the countries all across the US, all across Scandinavia, all across Europe. People were asking for these brochures to be posted out to them. And like the clear implication was they wanted to come and book trips, and they wanted to plan this. So obviously there's been massive interest. You were aware of that, obviously.
Oh, yes. I mean, Victoria and the tourist office gets people emailing all the time and asking for the brochure and asking about the accommodation. And we've had expressions of interest from all over the world for this year, going to travel for this year, like from Australia and Italy and Germany and, America and all over, really. And so the really good thing is that now we're starting at the end of March the guided tours to cater for people when they're coming over. So this
is going to be organised. It's going to be a commercial operation. I presume there's going to be a cost. You can't put this on without incurring costs.
Yeah, so we've partnered with Andy Kennedy from Ara Travel, and so those will be group tours, and he can actually cater for tours of any size. So if you come over with 4 people, he can accommodate that, 8, 16, and right up to 40 group tours. So I mean, obviously, people will pay for their guided tour like they would on any kind of thing anywhere.
Yeah.
Or they can do it self-guided as well, and it has all the QR codes at each spot, which if you just put your phone to it, it will come up with all the information,
all the extras,
Yeah, all the extras, so you can do it that way as well.
So it's great to get a bit of national telly coverage as well, Siobhan. You were interviewed for the programme that's going out, I believe, tonight on it, on Nationwide. What were RTE interested in?
So, they were just very, very interested in all the different spots. So we took them, for instance, to the Cross of Fanu, which is in the song Broad Majestic Shannon, and I always say that it's so interesting because that only existed in local people's memory, and because Shane made it famous, we've now marked it with a sign, the Cross of Fynnu, and there's a stone there now. I sat for a while at the Cross of Fynnu where people can sit, and it means so much to his fans. I tell the story where one fan was looking at his phone and it came up Fynnu on his phone because he was in the Kilbarron area and he started to cry. It really... it was emotional, yeah. Very emotional. And we put a video of the stone being put in place in Fynnu on Instagram, and it got 150,000 views. Like, people really, really it resonates for some reason with people. We took them to the Shannon Rovers GAA club, where our great grandfather was one of the founders and the first chairman and president, and we have commemorative Shane shirts there, and our great grandfather is on the sleeve. And just up the road is Kilbarron, which was my mother's home parish and our ancestral home parish, going right back to our great-grandparents. And that's where Mum went to school and where we went to Mass when we were kids, the church where Mum and Dad were married, and where there's a monument for Shane now, the Broad Majestic Shannon Monument. Yeah. And to Cllr Prior in Carney, which is where our Lynch relatives are buried, and which is mentioned in Shane's Sickbed of Colcullen song. And there's 3 Shannon spots on the tour, but we took them to the hub village of Dromineer. And they loved that. So they were interested in I suppose one of the special things was that the cottage, the Carney Commons cottage, is not yet on the tour, but because we haven't got it opened yet. But we took them there, and I gave them an interview there and showed them. And actually, the Unravelling Shane committee are now set up to try and raise funds to get the cottage restored, and it's in okay condition for its age. It's just that if you were going to open it to the public, you'd
need to do a bit of work. Yeah,
you would.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So this is all progressing all the time. Look, I'm under pressure for time, Siobhan. Hopefully talk to you again soon. But good luck with the tour and all of that work and getting that cottage redone. That'd be great. Okay. And people can tune in tonight if they want to see more.
At 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Okay, and can I just say, if people are interested, just go to unravelingshane.com or Nina Tourist Office, and they can get the information.
Ring the tourist office and they could get one of these amazing brochures. It'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. Siobhan, thanks very much for joining us. It's great to talk to you. Okay. Too. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Thank you very much, listeners. Thank you very much to all our guests. And thank you particularly to Leanne, who has produced today as every day. And thanks to Pat Murphy in the newsroom for not giving me a dirt. Oh, there it is. There's the dirty look. We are going to news just slightly late. But Fran will be back on Tipp Today tomorrow.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.